Jen Martin is one of those people who is born organized. I picture her lining up her binkies in a nice little row and rearranging the changing table. Lucky for us, she's turned her gift into a vocation, teaching those of us who were not born that way. But she's not one of those pushy, my way or the highway types.
Why I love my job is because there's not a one size fits all approach to any space, because every family and every space is different.
This is the How She Moms podcast with Whitney Archibald. I'm a mother of 5 on a mission to help moms connect with your kids, manage your homes, and create your own unique version of motherhood. I curate ideas from different moms so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. Today we get to take a deep dive into organizing our homes with Jen Martin, founder of the fabulous company Reset Your Nest. We'll talk about Jen's overall approach to organizing from the perspective of both organizing for clients and in her own home. And then we'll go deeper into 3 specific areas: the kitchen, the toy room, and the garage. I'm lucky enough to be friends with Jen in real life since before she started this company, and she's just a wonderful person. She started the business on her own a few years ago to just help people organize, and it's grown into a successful company with 20-plus team members who go all around the Utah area, leaving a trail of beautiful pantries behind them. But if you, like me, don't live in Utah and can't hire Reset Your Nest, don't despair. One of the things I love most about Jen is that she doesn't keep her wisdom close to her chest. Sure, she would love to have you hire Reset Your Nest to come and organize your home, but she knows that not everyone has the budget, and she wants everyone to be able to live in an organized house that they love. So she teaches, and she teaches well. When you go to resetyournest.com, you'll want to go straight to the blog where you'll find both a spring cleaning and spring organizing checklist that you can print out for free and use to guide your own reset. And her kitchen series on Instagram was such a revelation to me. She divides the kitchen into zones and teaches tutorials for each one. Such great ideas. Before we jump into the interview, I want to update you on a few things that are happening with How She Moms. First of all, remember when I said I was cutting down to 2 episodes a month? Well, I just have too many great interviews to share. So my plan now is to post 1 crowdsourced episode on the first Wednesday of each month, plus however many interviews I want to share on that same topic for the rest of the month. The next thing I wanted to tell you is something I haven't talked about much, but I've been working really hard to make HowSheMoms.com a central place where you can find ideas for any challenge you're undertaking with your home and family. I hired my lovely sister, Cassie Gadd, to help me get episode transcriptions up for all my past episodes, so you can choose to listen or read through the episode to find what you're looking for. We're not finished, but we're making good progress. The episodes are sorted by the problems you solve, so you can get right in and find fresh ideas. I really hope it can be a great resource for moms. You can also access my 3 workshops at HowSheMoms.com on family work, laundry, and meal planning. And the third thing I'm really excited about right now is a summer program I'm working on, the How She Moms Summer Camp. I'm developing a 6-week program families can use to work on a different skill each week, from reading to fitness to cleaning, with fun challenges, activities, videos, and discussion ideas. I'll share more details throughout the next month and launch it the first week in June. Now, let's get back to Jen Martin. I started by asking her, what are some of the guiding principles of organization that you use?
Well, I definitely teach my organizers that the number one most important thing in a space is to really get inside the client's head. So what if it's you doing it on your own, spring cleaning, like really think about how your family functions and how you want the space to look and function for you. So in order to look at a space with new eyes, we always take everything out of the space entirely. And I really think this needs to be done once, ever, and never redone again. If you do it the right way, like a complete reset, and that's why I love the word reset, it really doesn't need to be done again. Yes, it will need to be tidied and refreshed, but once you do a space the right way, so you take everything out, look at it with new eyes, and then what we really place a lot of value on is putting the right organization products in the space. So measuring ahead of time, really understanding what's available and out there, and investing in products that will last for your family and that will have the right look and maximize the space and work for you. So those are like our 2 biggest starting principles: are emptying the space, looking at it with new eyes, and then buying the product that's going to work for you.
Okay. And when somebody hires you, do they usually hire you for like a specific space in their house, or is it like help me organize my whole house?
We plan our projects by space. More and more, we're getting a lot of clients who are moving into new spaces or just want their entire home reset, and they want us to look at every space, but it's a lot more doable. It's an easier project to just come in and just do a pantry or just do a bedroom. And then usually lots of those clients, we end up doing their entire house just space by space. So every client's different.
Yeah. Okay. So do you talk about what the purpose of that space is going to be? How do you kind of analyze how you want that space to work for you?
Absolutely. Yes. Whether talking to a client or figuring it out for yourself, the most important thing is to assign the space or the room an intention. So how do you want it to function for you? And as you are editing and pulling things out, or if you're moving into a new space, as you look at each item or each category or zone, whatever it is, really coming back to that question of, does this help fill the intention? Or do I just not know where else to put it? So I find this a lot with the pantry, and it's fine. I mean, pantries and kitchens, there's a lot of gray area, and sometimes things just don't fit in your kitchen. So then they end up in the pantry, or sometimes you don't know where else to put it. So it just ends up, I feel like a lot of things end up in the pantry. But if you want your pantry to be a place where it's just food, or if you know that you want it to be food, and lots of people have butler's pantries these days. So you also maybe want food and a place to be able to prepare your smoothies or prepare your drinks, whatever it is, bringing everything together so that the intention of this space is achieved. And then anything extra needs to go somewhere else. So I just think landing spots happen in our homes where things tend to pile up, whether it's school papers or returns, incoming and outgoing. And until I think just really deciding like, okay, these just always end up here. Is that achieving the intent of the room? And if it's not, then maybe moving that to somewhere else, or just designating a spot, whether it's for returns or donations or office supplies or whatever it is. Just really establishing purpose behind each space is where I start.
Yeah, that's such an interesting idea, because, those are some of the things that we think of as temporary. But if there's always something in that temporary category, then that's permanent.
Yeah. And then so many extra things. I think so many people have like a junk drawer. It's just whatever. It's just whatever doesn't make sense to them will end up there. And then usually those junk drawers or those miscellaneous cabinets get out of control quickly because there's no real purpose to them. So if every place in your home has a purpose, then you really probably won't end up with a junk drawer. You might have a utility drawer where you have some pens or Post-its or tools of some sort, but it's not going to ever be a junk drawer. It's not going to be no man's land.
So you don't have a junk drawer?
I don't have a junk drawer.
Oh my goodness. This is amazing. You're a unicorn, or maybe you and your clients are all unicorns. Did you used to have a junk drawer?
That's funny. I don't know if I remember ever having a junk drawer. I've moved around quite a bit. I like to have a place where I keep pens and Post-its and scissors in my kitchen, but that was never a junk drawer for me. That was a place that I like to keep those types of things. And I have a different place where I keep like extra keys. I feel like lots of times people will have keys that they don't even know what they're to, or they're like many duplicates, and that will be taking up prime real estate in their kitchen, when I have a place where my extra keys go or my duplicates, but it's not in my kitchen. It's with more household type items. And so, yeah, I think lots of things that I notice are typically in people's junk drawers. I don't keep in my kitchen or really anywhere in prime real estate, because most of the stuff isn't important that ends up in those spaces. So,
yeah. So do you feel like you're just kind of naturally inclined to organization? Have you always been like that since you were a kid?
Yeah, definitely. I, like my roommates in college, made fun of me for color coding my closet. And for some of us who are a little more anxious, it's how I control a situation or a space. it helps me feel like I'm in control when I know where everything is. And so like when COVID hit, I reorganized my whole house, and that's how I coped with the stress of everything that was going on. So it's definitely something I'm naturally inclined to do. And I've learned so much through owning my business, and it's so interesting to get inside other people's homes. But I definitely feel like it's something I've always loved. I've always been drawn to, and it's so fun to be able to share my gift with clients and other people. So it's been really fun.
Yes, and it is such a gift. So what do you do then when your clients don't share your gift? How do you help them figure out something that they can maintain with their own skill set?
Well, that's a great question. And it is so interesting. I do have clients across the board, like some really struggle and just cannot get out from underneath their clutter and create any sort of system that will work. But then I have other clients on the other end of the spectrum who are actually very organized and have made great efforts, and they just want to bring it to the next level after they've seen what I've done. But I love my job so much because not only do I love the organization part, but it's such a personal thing because we get into people's homes and we really have to understand their lives. And yes, like their natural inclinations. So not just the systems that they would either like or already have in their homes, whether it's with their kids or their husbands or their morning routine or whatever it is, but also understanding how their organization part of their mind works. So what will be maintainable.
Right.
And it's just really through a series of questions. Like there are some clients I've had who they know that as pretty as it might look in some of the pictures that I share, to have like all of the items decanted. That's the word we use when we put items in separate, like airtight seal containers, like to have all your nuts or all your snacks in a plastic container. They know that they will never come home from the grocery store and empty all their contents into another separate container. Like that doesn't make any sense to them. And so we don't do that for them. We'll just create a basket for snacks or a basket for nuts, and they just put all of the packaging straight from the store in that bin. So really understanding the clients, what they feel like they'll be able to maintain, and then also understanding their life and what systems will help them the most. It's just a lot of questions. We work really closely with our clients. So we don't just come in and do it for them, but we do all the work, bring all the product, but we really have to have them there as the resource throughout the entire project so that we make sure that this is going to last for them and work for them.
That is so fascinating. Like you get to meet people and in a very vulnerable situation often, probably because they're like embarrassed about their mess or their clutter. That's really interesting. Okay, so I want to jump back to big picture again and ask you why you think it's important to have an organized space, an organized home.
I have a lot of reasons. And since I've started, learning so much about it and speaking about it, it's amazing just the number of studies that have been done, because obviously it's something I've always been drawn to. It's always how I've coped with my stress or whatever it is, by having complete order around me. But so many studies have been done that your environment impacts your life, your happiness levels, your stress levels, your productivity, your health. They say that an organized home like decreases weight gain and just overall physical health. The more organized you are, the better you sleep. It improves relationships. And there are studies that are done on just each of those bullet points. So I am definitely a firm believer that it's not just me and like my hobby and love, that I love things to be pretty and organized, but actually the space that we live in really does affect every aspect of our life. So
yeah, that's cool. Okay. What role does decluttering play when you're taking everything out of a space? Are you like throwing things out and donating things? And do you have like a set decluttering process, and where does that fit in the timeline?
Yeah, some clients like to declutter before they take everything out, but it's funny. I'll have a lot of clients say too, like, I already went through everything, so I know I want to keep everything that's in there, whether it's a closet or a pantry or whatever it is. And then we still pull everything out and sort it, and I will still take the client through. And there's a series of questions we ask, no matter what space it is, like how long since you've used it, or is it still serving a purpose? If you haven't used it in a few months, when are you planning on using it? I I love the 2020 rule, which is if it can be replaced in 20 minutes or less for $20 or less, and you haven't used it in a significant amount of time, that's a good rule of thumb that maybe it's okay to just let it go. So I explain those principles to my client. We go through everything, even in the spaces where they said they've already kind of done an edit. I always hear the comment, oh, I didn't know that was there, that got missed, or they forget. So really, until everything's out and you can see everything just right in front of you, you don't realize how much you have, or I don't know. It just is really eye-opening to get it out there. And so, yes, I like to do the edit after we have emptied out the space and really ask those questions about all the items that come out. We do check expiration dates. I like to check expiration dates on pantries, not even because I think that you're going to die if you eat a pretzel that's one day past the expiration date, but because I think it's a sign that it's something that's not getting eaten. And so either put it on, maybe make a bin like to eat now, or let go of it because you know it's not something that's really ever going to be consumed. So yeah, editing right after you empty out is what I think is the best.
I'm already thinking of a few things in my pantry that I'm like, okay, yeah, nobody's ever gonna eat that. I can probably just toss it.
Yeah. Or bought it for a recipe and no one liked the recipe, so it's not going to happen again. And it's just taking up space after a certain point.
Yeah, totally. And right now is a great time to donate some of that stuff, right?
Exactly. And I don't know about all states, but I know the Utah Food Bank does accept expired foods if it's been unopened, which is really nice because, again, it's not that the food is necessarily bad, going to hurt you, but it is also probably just taking up space and not ever going to get eaten if it's reached that expiration date. So,
well, and sometimes it's just a matter of like, let's let somebody else make that decision. if it's cluttering out of your house, like even with items to donate, it's like, will somebody want this? Will they not? Let them decide if they want it or not. Just get it out of the house. And
exactly.
Have you encountered clients that I don't want to name call and go all the way to hoarder, but have you had clients that just have a really hard time letting things go? And were you able to break that barrier?
A few, and because Reset Your Nest we cater to a certain like aesthetic, most of my clients, like 95% of them, don't even come close to that realm. The few that do, we just make the most of what we have. We are not trained to really work through some of I think that you're really breaking down some psychological barriers when you're really encountering that stuff. So the few clients we've had who really have a hard time letting go of things, we do the best we can to just sort, organize, talk through a lot of things with them. I found those are the types of people that lots of times they have to really be ready to get rid of things to make a change, but we make it more orderly and it is nice. And we have a couple clients who, because they were so unorganized before we were able to help them, they would order something maybe from Amazon and then it would immediately get lost in the chaos. And then when they went to go find it, they wouldn't be able to find something, they would just order it again. So still just like getting everything out, sorting it and allowing them to see, okay, you've now ordered 5 of these. You don't need to order them again. This is where they are. This has a label. We've been able to help them.
And mostly that was just out of curiosity.
Yeah. It's definitely a different client than what we typically see.
Yeah. Because it sounds like they have to be kind of at a certain level where they at least value what you're doing enough to pay for it, obviously. And so they've already kind of done some of the work for you, probably mentally at least.
The mental work. And it really is fun. I mean, people who are just in the middle, where they have a lot of stuff they need to get rid of. I find that a lot of clients have done the mental work, even if it's not like extreme hoarder level, and they are so ready. And I'm just so impressed. Like really, I think most people, what they need is just to decide. And once it's out, they are ready to, they've like prepped themselves with all the questions, like, is this serving me? When was the last time I used it? And there are so many of my clients that help so much in the transformation and in creating systems, because none of the stuff that's been occupying so much space that they're not even using, once that's out, then everything in the space is stuff that they actually use. It makes the whole process come together so well. So
Yeah. Okay. So before we get into specific spaces, I'm curious about how this works in your own family. How do you teach your children to be organized?
that is a good question. Well, I think that once you have reset a space and you create zones and put labels on things, even kids who can't read, walking the whole family, husband included, through the newly reset space and saying, okay, this is where everything goes now. But even taking that a step further, and while you're resetting it, consulting with them, I think really helps. So when I was thinking of creating a snack drawer for my kids, I asked them, like, do you think this would be helpful? I think we have problem. I buy really special snacks for schools, for school lunches, and they disappear. So I don't really want them in the pantry. What do you guys think about this idea of creating a snack drawer? And I promise I will always put really good snacks in there. If you guys help me keep it organized and sorted, and I'm just using this as an example, but and then you'll know that that is the drawer that you get to go to, and you get to choose one of those special snacks for your lunch each day, and you can have one when you get home from school, but it's not a free for all. We're not going to eat 10 a day. And they like the idea, and they actually really love coming home from Costco and putting everything in its place and keeping that drawer stocked. And so that's just an example. And with each of my kids' rooms, a similar process, like, what do you think would work for you? If we got bins for these categories and we put a label on it, would you be able to maintain that? And so, yeah, I think consulting with them, labels for young kids, if you really want like a toy room picked up, using labels that they connect with. So whether it's clear bins or labels with like drawings on them, I know a lot of people do that. And then just continually reviewing the system. If you're seeing that it's not being maintained, then having a little family meeting and reintroducing everyone to the systems that you've set up. I really do think kids and husbands can get on board.
Yeah. Okay. And do you feel like different children have responded in different ways?
Oh, absolutely. As we all know, every kid is so different. And it's funny too. I mean, my most organized kids, kids just are funny. Like they'll have moments where my daughter the other day, she's like, Mom, I'm going to refold all my clothes. So she pulled everything out and she file folded her clothes. And yet her room is the room that's messy like 90% of the time. So I think kids just go through phases where they get excited about it and they don't. And every kid is so different. So I have kids who maintain their spaces a lot better than others in the systems, and finding what works for them. I think if you're going to have your kids fold their own laundry, then maybe you need to not be super specific about how it's done, so maybe for my 13-year-old son, like he just has a bin for his shorts and a bin for his socks and for underwear, and he just like throws everything in the bin. I'm not going to be folding his underwear for him, and he's not going to do it for himself. So a system that works for him is.
Yeah, that's great. So like, what are your rules around that? Like, let's go to bedrooms specifically. Do you have like a certain day that it needs to be cleaned? Does it have to be cleaned every day? Like what expectations do you have for your kids' bedroom specifically?
Well, that's a good question. And now we're getting personal because there are some things I do like for clients, and set up systems. For my own kids, the expectation is that their room is clean before they can get on any device. And it should be clean before they go to school and before they go to bed. But it's still something I'm working on, because I remember just explaining to my daughter, I think it was yesterday, if you go to bed with your room clean, then you wake up, the only thing you have to do to clean your room is make your bed and put your pajamas away. And if you clean your room before you go to school, then the only thing you have to do is nothing, because if it was already clean. And yet, so we don't really have a day, like the expectation is their room is kind of always maintained, but that is not to say that they're perfect at it. So we don't do a day of the week. I do have someone who helps me and cleans our house every 2 weeks. And so that's a good reminder, like absolutely everything. You need to make sure that nothing fell underneath your bed. Like we do like a good solid, I come in and inspect their room and make sure that it's clean and tidy every 2 weeks. But besides that, we just try and maintain it on the daily.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, what are the most common areas that people hire you to organize?
Definitely pantries. Pantries, I feel like kind of became my trademark or what I was known for early on. And pantries are extra fun because they're a space we're in all the time, and they are really an extension of our home. And they're really fun to make beautiful instead of just a kitchen cabinet or, just a coat closet. So pantry is number one for sure. And now lots of times most pantries are in conjunction with the kitchen, which is really nice because when there's so much that gray area that I was mentioning and overlap. I don't know. We do a lot of garages and a lot of kid spaces, like toy areas. We do a lot of closets, especially primary closets. Yeah, and I feel like lots of times bathrooms in conjunction with that. I don't know. Craft rooms, we do everything, but pantries and kitchens are definitely the number one.
Okay, so let's talk pantries and kitchens. And what are some of your guiding principles in that specific space?
Yeah, so when we do a pantry specifically, we take everything out, check for expiration dates. As we take things out, we're separating into like categories. So you don't just end up with a mess sprawled all over your house. So we already have our zones, and then I consult with the client about what their food items are that they're using the most. Like how often are they cooking? How often are their kids making their own mac and cheese? Are their kids grabbing their own cereal? Are they a huge breakfast family? Are they making lunches? What exactly are they pulling from? And then we decide when the pantry is empty, we kind of start to map out different zones. Like if a certain family has kids who get their own cereal for themselves every morning and they have lots of cereal, they're a cereal family, well then cereal that's the first zone that we're going to give a prime location to, is the breakfast zone. So we look at the breakfast stuff that's out, think about product that we're going to use, bring it in, kind of design that breakfast zone. And then we move from there. If they have a lot of snacks, same thing, and they want those low, maybe they don't want the snacks low and they want them up higher because mom needs to get snacks for them. So we kind of map out snack zone, breakfast zone, dinner zone. Sometimes there's depending on how much they have drinks, a drink zone like hot chocolate and drink packets or whatever it is. I'm trying to think of other zones. Baking zone. So we kind of map out how often certain zones are being accessed and who needs to access them. And then we start to put the items in the correct product that we think will work. And then we just start to sort, organize, and put it back in the pantry and then add labels. So that's our process for pantries.
Okay. So then if that extends into the larger kitchen, what are some of the kind of tips and tricks for organizing your whole kitchen space?
Well, if you're doing it on your own, my biggest tip for organizing a kitchen is to start small, because kitchens can get super overwhelming. And I know I've spoken with so many people through Instagram and then past clients who they say they're going to take on that project and they pull everything out from every space, and then they're able to get a few things back in cabinets and cupboards, and they just give up and everything kind of goes back to where it was. So if there is a space that you absolutely know, okay, my dishwasher's here, my table's here, I know that I want my flatware, my silverware here, then maybe focus on that super easy drawer. Or I really hot pads by the stove, or cooking utensils by the stove. Or if you want spices in a drawer and you empty out a drawer to make that happen, that's a really fun, satisfying project, is organizing spices. So I would definitely take a kitchen, unless you're hiring someone like Reset Your Nest to come in and do it for you. I would not do the whole kitchen in one day, and I would take it piece by piece and prioritize the drawers and cabinets that you know what their function is going to be. So spices, cooking tools, hot pads, silverware, maybe cleaning stuff under the sink, maybe pots and pans by the stove, and start with those easier areas. And then you can move on to the areas that make less sense, or items that are a little more confusing, like platters or mixing bowls or whatever it is, and gradually move to the more complicated areas.
Okay. And do you kind of assign zones in kitchens too?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely based on the layout of the kitchen. Like, where is the fridge? I have some families who they want their glasses right by the fridge. Some of them want their glasses right by the sink. And then I always wanted my glasses right by the dishwasher. And sometimes it all works out and it's all where you want it. But mapping out with a client the preferences for the family and where you want certain things in connection with the appliance that it's next to. So especially dishes, glasses, silverware. Lots of times we'll end up with a baking cupboard or drawer, like baking tools, like measuring cups and spoons and those tools. I'm trying to think of other zones. Sometimes there's a zone for like grilling tools, which, that's not even, you don't grill in the kitchen, but just an area where that would make sense, or table settings like placemats and tablecloths. So yeah, definitely map out the zones that make the most sense. Kid zones, kid dishes, lots of times those will go in drawers so the kids can help set the table. So we do the same mapping for those.
Brilliant. And is that kind of consistent over any area?
But yeah, if we do a crafting space for kids, like we'll definitely put like coloring items together versus more, and sometimes more like the mom zone would be up high with like slime ingredients or tie-dye kits or whatever it is, so they're in any area or a closet, you're obviously going to put all of your hats together or pants or maybe dresses. So I think that in whatever space it is, you're going to end up with zones and areas where you're bringing all the like things together. So
yeah, cool. Okay, well let's zoom over to kid areas. Let's specifically talk about like a toy room.
Lots of times I find that clients have just bought containers as their family has grown, as they've moved. You buy a few containers when you have a younger kid, and then you move to and then maybe it works in that house, and then you move to a new house and you still have those containers, and then you're going to buy some more. So we're happy to work with what clients already have, but there is something to be said for starting fresh, and it's more expensive, but to start fresh with it all consistent product and all product that makes sense in the space. So that's definitely something that I found in toy rooms that we do, even if it's already even kind of organized, like all the blocks are in a bin and all the cars are in a bin, we're going to put them in consistent bins. And another thing I found, a tip for toy organization is, every toy room space is different, but I really love cube storage that you can get at IKEA or Target. I found that those 13-inch cubes, they're super affordable. They're big enough that they can hold a lot of bulky toys. And lots of times toy rooms are just in need of more storage because there's just not enough. And so that's something that I use a lot, and just use containers that really fill that cube space. And then you can start fresh with those types of containers in that system.
Okay. And what have you done in your own home with like rotating toys that don't get used and reevaluating? And do you include your kids in that process? Do you just kind of figure out what's not getting used? Do you store some toys? What do you do about rotating toys?
Yeah, our system has changed a little bit. Just my kids are getting a little bit older. I love the idea of rotating toys. And when I did rotate toys, I wouldn't tell my kids. I would just observe what they were playing with the most, and that would stay out. And then I'd kind of pull an item, or also not as a punishment, but a natural consequence. If there was a toy that they were having a really hard time, like complaining about putting away, having a hard time keeping tidy, that would make its way out on the rotation for a little while until we practice systems. And they move their way back. Right now we have a toy room closet. And so the way I'm rotating anything that we have is anything that I'd rather have them not use or that I know will get forgotten just goes on the top shelf. So in that situation, that's a nice way to rotate toys. But in the past, I would keep toys in the garage just to clear the clutter out of my house and keep a few bins in the garage. And yeah, in general, I've kind of also edited down to the toys that I feel like I want to keep for forever until I'm a grandma, and really pared down on anything extra. I really like the idea of just having classic toys that really foster creativity. And everyone has their personal preferences. And those few silly toys, like my daughter really likes LOL dolls right now, and I think they're ridiculous. But those few toys that are very personal to or unique to a child, each of my kids has a bin in their room where they can keep like their treasures. So a few unique toys. But then in our family toy area, I really just keep like the really good ones. So
okay. And what are some of those timeless toys that you really like?
I know it's personal to everyone. I love Marble Works. I grew up with Marble Works. I love Magnetiles. My boys have always loved cars. So we have a bin of all the great, Hot Wheels cars. And then we have train tracks. It's funny. My kids ranging in age from 6 to 13 now, they will still pull out the Thomas the Train Engine tracks and build tracks all over the house, the four of them with each other. So that's a toy that I think I'll always keep because I think it's fun. And then I love pretend play stuff. So some costumes and, kitchen items. I think those really are the toys that we're hanging on to the most. And then games. We like to play games.
I like that because often as a young mom, you don't have that perspective and you don't know which ones are going to be timeless. So I like asking this question, especially to mothers of multiple children or whose children are kind of growing up, to see what stuck and what lasted to have.
Yeah. So. What toys do you really want to have around your house, taking up space? Yeah.
When my kids were little, especially like 1 and 2, I would have, because some of those toys are very narrow windows that they like to play with them. So once a kid started growing out of their like baby toys, I would just like box them up, or sometimes I'd even wrap them already. And then I'd give them to the next kid on their birthday.
That's amazing.
So they were out of circulation, but then I would they'd be new to that next child. So it was great.
That's so smart. That's totally something I would do.
Yeah.
Too. I think that's great.
Okay. So let's talk garages for a second.
Okay. Again, just like what I've gotten into and why I love my job is because there's not a one size fits all approach to any space, because every family and every space is different. But in garages, I found that the biggest investment, if you're hiring someone to do it, and then also a personal investment, is time. Because usually product is not fancy and expensive and pretty cut and dry. It's just the time investment that it takes to really go through your stuff, face the items that you're never going to use, make sure the categories make sense. And a lot of it, I think, ends up in a lot of disarray, because usually the items you're using in your garage are things that, for me at least, like say camping stuff, you just went on a camping trip, you're going to come home and you just need it out of the way because you're moving on to the next thing, I guess. Or I feel like tools get out of control quickly because like the time that it takes to put things back where they go, I feel like you run out of time more than other spaces and you're not living in the space. And so I just found that garages get really unruly quickly. So really facing pulling everything out, it takes a lot of time. If you're doing it on your own, again, maybe really just spending a whole day and addressing the tool situation, and then spending a whole day and addressing your camping stuff or your Christmas decorations or other like yard care, lawn care. It depends. Some people don't store anything but actual garage stuff in their garages. That's great. Like kid outdoor activity toys. But the two main products that we use in garages are totes with closed lids so that they can be protected from dirty things. So anything that you're storing long-term, putting a label on it, making sure that it is consistent and clean and just doesn't cause you any inks, getting it on a shelf. But then I also like to use open bins for anything that you're going to grab and use. So car washing stuff, lawn care stuff, a lot of tools. And so there are bins that I really like to use that are open, and we just label those. Again, separate them out by zone, depending on what it is, getting a label on it. It's amazing how it doesn't sound very complicated, because it's not. It's just an investment in time and really deciding how you want your garage to function for you.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of our tools. So we're one of those people that stuff we use in the garage is in the garage. Well, it basically looks like a bicycle store, but because everybody has 3 bikes for different purposes. But we keep all our tools and stuff in our storage room. So I think these could be kind of linked, a storage area. But what on earth, like all the nails and screws and tools, and especially all the little stuff, what on earth do you do with all that little stuff that you probably want to have on hand, but that's so annoying?
And it just depends, because some people have like a tool bench where they have drawers. So then we would use drawer organizers to separate out the little things. If you don't, then you could use a zipper pouch or smaller containers, like an accessory size bin is the one that we like, just to keep things contained. So finding the right containers that will work for your space. And even with all the bike stuff, I think to separate out, I don't know how you keep, but you could have a bin of just bike locks, and then a designated wall holding all your helmets, like just however your family works for you. Like you could have a space set aside for pumps or for bike repair, and keeping things sorted and labeled. I was like, bike garages are so unique to each family.
Yeah.
But finding the container that makes sense to you, whether it's lidded or unlidded, making sure all like things are together, making sure it has a label. I know I'm a broken record. It's the same thing for every space, but
well, the label thing is a new thing for me, because a friend of mine, understanding my challenges, that was one of her gifts one year, was a label maker. And I was surprised at how much a difference that has made, and how it never occurred to me to own a label maker before then. Like that would never have occurred to me. And I still have not done it with my tool organization, which would be amazing. So
yeah. Well, and it's funny because everyone always thought I was crazy for wanting to label things, at least in my family, like that's just a little over the top. Does that really need to have a label on it? But the reality is the labels are not for us. They're not for the ones who are doing the organization. They're for everyone else who's living in the home. So you might know where everything goes, and it might seem super obvious, because if you're taking your garage, for example, like there's a bin that's maybe only full of tires, like new, tires that need fresh tires. But for some reason, unless there's a label on it, I have found that most husbands and kids do not think hard enough about it to like notice it and to put it where it goes. And it helps a little bit. It's not always foolproof, but it helps a little bit to have a title on it saying, drawing attention, saying this is what goes in here. So then hopefully they'll be that much more inclined to actually put it where it goes, instead of right to the side of it, or on top of it, instead of in the actual bin. So I think labels are just for them, not necessarily even for us.
Yeah. Okay. So if people are doing this on their own, where do they start? Like even figuring out what containers to use?
That is a good question. And that's the hardest thing. And I think that's the value in hiring Reset Your Nest that doesn't get recognized as much, because we do the labor, but the education and the know-how and the shopping that goes on ahead of time to plan the project, that is its own like skill set. So, measuring is really important, but as far as finding the products, once you have the measurements and you have an idea, I say just follow Reset Your Nest and I'll guide you through it. Like I share everything I can on Reset Your Nest, on Instagram, and through my newsletter as much as I can on my blog to try and help guide people, because that really is a huge challenge to know what products are out there. And I've gone through hundreds, if not thousands of different products, testing them and trying different products. And walking into Container Store can be so overwhelming because a lot of it I think is overpriced, and not every product that's in there is a great product. So just because it's from a store called the Container Store, it doesn't mean it's a good one. And so that is a challenge. And I try and share as much of that as I can, because whittling it down to what's actually going to work can be really daunting, and it's an investment. So you don't want to spend money on all brand new containers and then have them not work for you in the end. So,
that's one of the things that I love most about what you do, is that the educational component, and that you're not like trying to keep things hidden or close to your chest. You like, I can tell you genuinely want everybody to be able to live a more organized life, whether they can hire you or not. And you seem very open to sharing and educating whether or not people are going to hire you, which I'm guessing results in more people hiring you, actually.
Well, I hope so. And that's so nice of you. But yeah, it's definitely one of the challenges for me with having this business is that I know that the service we're providing is a luxury service. And now when people ask me how much it costs to do a pantry, the lowball price that I usually give is something that I would like, my jaw would have literally dropped to the floor if someone had told me that a couple of years ago. And so it's definitely, I know that having us come in is something that doesn't cater to my demographic and like most people. And so I do love being able to share all the things I've learned, because yeah, you just hit it right on the head. I genuinely want people to be able to live a more organized life. And I know that hiring professional organizers to come to the home, that's not something we can all do. I've always been a DIYer. I wanted a beautiful home, but I've never hired an interior designer. So it's the same thing. I think you can have beautiful spaces that function for you without spending the money, but it takes a lot of time and education and a lot of work. So hopefully I'm just helping aid that process for those people who it's out of their price range.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a junk drawer and some expired food to tend to. Happy organizing. Thank you so much for listening to the How She Moms podcast and for being part of this community. There are so many other ways for you to connect and hopefully also contribute. I share tips and ideas regularly on Instagram and Facebook at How She Moms. You can find past episodes and other resources at howshemoms.com. And you can always just email me directly at whitney@howshemoms.com. Special thanks to my own wonderful mom, Susan Singley, for recording my theme music. She played this song all the time when I was growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.